Yeah, do you know what? It's fine, really. I'm busy. I'm keeping busy, so that's the main thing. I haven't had time to sit and dwell on, boxing or what might have been or what could have been or this, that, or the other. To be honest, I haven't had a minute, which is I'm grateful for, really, because it can be a problem for when boxers retire. And I felt like I was ready to retire. It weren't like I was forced into retirement or, there was no options. I kind of went out on my own terms because there was options available for me. But I decided to go when it was time, when I thought it was to go. So yeah, it's fine, really. It's just getting used to normal life and just being part of the rat race, I suppose, working every day of the week and keeping busy. And but that comes to all of us, whether or not you going to achieve what you set out to achieve, you've still got to do things after boxing. You don't just go and sit at a lake fishing or playing golf or whatever. That's not for me anyway. So I'm happy to be just doing normal things.
And as we're heading into 2022, how do you feel about the heavyweight picture?
Yeah, it's looking good. I mean, when I say I don't have time to dwell on things, I do look at the heavyweight division, and it's now the glamour division again, isn't it? I'd be lying if I said I didn't look at it and think, if only I was, kind of towards my peak when this was going on, it would have been great to be part of it. But it's looking good. It's looking good. There's a lot of good, healthy competition. Got a lot of tough fighters who seem willingly to be willing to face each other, and even in the division level wise, just below the elite, your up and coming fighters who are touted as future stars or whatever, they're all willing to fight each other to a degree. There's no one really going over the top trying to protect and preserve their unbeaten record, so that's refreshing. And it's better for the fans, and it's creating more competitive fights.
It looks like we will have Whyte against Fury at some stage this year. Is that a fight that excites you?
Yeah, definitely is. Yeah, definitely is. For me, Tyson Fury hasn't really got many other options left which are going to get him motivated. I mean, being heavyweight champion of the world is motivation in itself, and that's what makes the greatest champions. But as far as nemesis and opponents are concerned, I think he needs like a bit of a domestic fight with a bit of needle in it. And Dillian Whyte will give him it back mentally, verbally, and physically because he's a tough fighter. But when Fury's done what he's done to Deontay Wilder twice and had the draw, Anthony Joshua's, a fantastic fighter, but he's kind of lost his aura that he had. He's lost that aura of invincibility that he once had. Now, Tyson Fury is, you're looking at AJ, Dillian Whyte. Beyond that, you're looking at fighters who people on these shows don't know, haven't heard of, or maybe I heard Robert Elenius mentioned. We know of him over here. I obviously do. I fought him twice in the amateurs and obviously followed the heavyweight division closely. But he isn't someone who's going to exactly get the fans excited in the UK. That being said, Fury's last few fights have been in the States. He's conquered that market more than he has here. But I think he deserves a showpiece homecoming against a domestic fighter who's deservedly in that number one spot in Dillian Whyte. He's spent so much time at that top end of the rankings waiting for a shot. I think it's only right he gets it, and it's poetic that he gets it against someone like Tyson Fury, who's the star of the division.
And what do you think would happen in that fight? Because, of course, Fury would go in as a big favourite, but Whyte has taken on some good fighters in this division over the last few years, and it's just been that defeat to Povetkin, which he was able to avenge last year.
Yeah, he avenged that defeat, and that that in itself was the mark of what type of fighter he is. You know, it was a devastating knockout, and he come back and had a direct rematch and settled the score. Now, that can be a difficult thing to do, especially considering the nature of how he was beaten. But he's a fighter, Dillian Whyte, and nothing like that seems to faze him. Fighters fight and they can get knocked out, and it happens, and he doesn't dwell on it, and he hasn't bought into the fact that an older man had knocked him out, and because it can happen, and he didn't let it bother him. So he's put that right. He's beat top contenders. I do think he'll give Tyson Fury a good fight, but I do think Tyson Fury's experience for a start in the bigger fights, championship fights, world heavyweight champion. He's the marquee name of the division. His confidence is growing all the time, even though he already had super confidence about him. Now, all these prophecies that he made in the past, they've actually proved him to be right, and he's gone on to do what he said he was going to do. So that's only going to make him grow even further, and he won't say things complacent. They won't let complacency set in. He'll know Dillian Whyte's a dangerous fighter, got one of the best left hooks in the heavyweight division, but can also be hurt himself, Dillian. Obviously, aside from the Povetkin fight, in a couple of fights he's been put down by Joseph Parker. Oscar Rivas was another one, I think, where he might have touched the canvas. If not, he might have been wobbles or airballs. So Tyson Fury, he's a big, heavy man, big, strong puncher. I think Fury win the fight, possibly on points, but I think it's a fight that Tyson Fury should win.
You spoke before about Anthony Joshua potentially losing some of his aura with those defeats he's had. What do you think happens in that rematch against Oleksander Usyk? We know he's going to make some changes to his training setup, but we've got 4 or so months until this rematch. Do you think he can win back his belts?
Not against Usyk. I just think Usyk's got his number. Every fighter has an opponent where that style of fighting and that man in particular, you're just going to have to be really lucky to win the fight. And luck, you can be lucky, but luck also creates itself with mistakes that are made by the opponent. And I do not think Usyk is someone who will make the mistake where he'll put himself in a position to be knocked out by an Anthony Joshua punch. I think he's too switched on. I think he's too sharp. He's so clever, and he's like a step ahead all the time. He's always thinking 2-3 moves ahead, and I don't think Anthony Joshua can deal with that. But kudos, for going into the rematch directly, because I get it. He's a fighter. He wants to right the wrongs straight away, and he's done that with Ruiz, so we'll believe he can do it again. But I think Usyk's a different kettle of fish. Changing trainers, I don't think is the answer. There's not much more you can change with Anthony Joshua, I don't think, at this stage as a trainer. They're talking about bringing the fight out of him, or the dogging the back out of him in the fight and this, that, and the other. But he boxed against Usyk the way he did in a boxing match. He went into a boxing match and tried to outbox him. Now, initially, you could say that was his ego trying to do that. Wanted to prove he was a better boxer than the best boxer in the division, or one of them. But the other side of the coin is that he may have been forced to do that, because if he would have went rushing in with the aggression, he would have got countered and countered hard. And I think the first 2 rounds of the fight, Usyk caught him with a couple of solid punches that got us respect, and that took away the idea of trying to just get stuck right in with the aggression. And apart from that, what I'm reading, getting American trainers in to do this and that, I just can't see much difference at this stage that Anthony Joshua can change, especially to overcome the conundrum that is Alexander Usyk.
I wanted to ask you about a boxer that you've been in the ring with, Derek Chisora, because Eddie Hearn was speaking after the fight that Derek had with Joseph Parker, hugely entertaining fight, and he suggested that Deontay Wilder would be an ideal matchup, and that could be a potential opponent as Deontay Wilder looks to come back into the ring. What do you make of that?
I don't think that's as bad an idea as some people have voiced. There's not much difference in levels at the top end in the heavyweight division. It's small margins will create champions or winners of fights. And although Derek, was hurt a few times against Joseph Parker, his toughness is there. Now we need to remember that Deontay Wilder's last 2 fights have been bad beatings, really. Really bad beatings. So they're kind of both in the same boat. What Derek brings is world-class toughness. What Deontay Wilder brings is world-class clinical punching power. But, what Derek lacks in that, he'll make up for in his durability, his toughness, his stamina, his powers of recovery. His powers of recovery is similar to like what Evander Holyfield had when he was hit by a punch. He looked like he was gone, but then he just come firing back out of nowhere. Derek's got that. I think it's a good fight, and it's a business at the end of the day. Derek Chisora, people talk about his health. That's his prerogative. He can only go off how he feels. And apart from getting hurt a few times by another 18-stone man in Joseph Parker, he's a healthy man. He keeps himself in good shape. He's fit. And whether he's fighting Deontay Wilder next or he's fighting a non-puncher, so-called non-puncher next, the same dangers going into a boxing ring exist, especially as a heavyweight. So why not get paid a bucket loads of money for it or a shed loads of money for it and fight a bigger name who'll get your juices flowing, and if you win, there's massive upside and it can be winnable. So I don't think it's a bad shout.
A lot of people spoke after that fight against Joseph Parker and said, now is the time for Derek to retire. He's 38 now, 12 defeats he's suffered. But from what you're saying there, if he feels he can go on, then he should go on.
You've got to respect it. They say a fighter's the last person who'll see when it's time to retire. Everyone else has seen before him. But apart from him getting wobbles a couple of times and put down, and let's not forget, Joseph Parker's a former world champion, took Anthony Joshua the distance, had Dillian Whyte on the canvas twice. He's fighting Tyson Fury. I know Derek has got this. We've got this perception about Derek that he's in our fights, and he is, but he's got a much better defence than he's given credit for. I think it's the first time I've seen him a bit marked up after a fight, to be honest. He uses his stature to his advantage, the shorter, more compact style. He very rarely gets marked up or bashed up about the head. He's got a better defence than he's given credit for. So, and like I said, I can only go off my own experience. Look, I got told to retire years ago by many different people. And I knew it weren't the right time to retire, and I was right to decide to fight on, for my own reasons, and I proved myself right. But I think Derek's got more in him. And the 12 defeats, half of them you could argue that he won, half of them probably more. And at this stage, which is a good thing, people aren't bothered how many times Derek's lost. They want to watch Derek Chisora fight and be entertained by him, and he'll bring entertainment every time.
And from a Deontay Wilder point of view, you spoke there, he's had 2 tough losses now to Tyson Fury, but do you still think he may have a role to play at the very top of the heavyweight division?
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, definitely. I think he will, yeah. But that's why I'm saying the Derek Chisora fight is a decent fight to me for the two of them, because he can't go from fighting Tyson Fury 3 times to fighting, I don't know, someone like Gerald Washington, or someone coming off a loss to a prospect. He wants to be fighting someone who's a name, who knows is going to give him a fight. So for that reason, that's one of the reasons why I think it's good. But as far as being involved in the top fights, definitely, because who wouldn't want to see Wilder versus Usyk? Who wouldn't want to see Wilder versus AJ? We all want to see that one, because he brings that excitement, He's definitely got a part to play. It's just whether or not it's in him to still do it, whether he still wants to when he's not the top dog. Has he got it in him to go on that long road back to the top with no guarantee of ever getting there? He's got a right load of money. Doesn't need to fight for money anymore. He's fighting for his legacy, but it's a long road back. And just being involved in big non-title fights might cut the mustard for him.
And finally, I wanted to ask you, as we head into an exciting year for the heavyweight division, do you think we'll have a fight for the undisputed heavyweight world champion this year?
This year? Probably not this calendar year. I don't think there's that many different variables going on with politics in boxing and different sanction bodies and TV's contracts with certain TV stations. And I think if Tyson Fury fights and beats Dillian Whyte in his next fight, it's going to make things more possible, because obviously I think it's his last fight in that contract he had with the ESPN. And then that'll just open things up elsewhere and make things more lucrative about, the Usyk fight, maybe if he fights Usyk. But if Usyk fights AJ, I'm expecting him to win. But if he doesn't, I'm assuming there might be a rematch clause in it for a third fight, because he's the champion. He was the mandatory. I'm assuming he'll have a rematch clause in that. I'm hopeful we will. And if we do, I think it'll be out of the two we've just mentioned, Usyk and Fury.
And who wins that fight?
Do you know what? That's a difficult one to predict, because the only men I can see beating Usyk, some people might laugh at this, is obviously Tyson Fury, because he's got an unconventional way of finding a way to win. It's not textbook boxing, which a well-schooled fighter can read as well. It's difficult to read. It's unique in his fighting style. And the other person who's got a similar way of fighting, and you've got to have a great engine, is Joe Joyce. I think big Joe Joyce could cause Usyk problems with his size, his strength, his fitness, his how unconventionally fights, even throws some of his punches. But out of Usyk and Fury, you've got two men who don't know how to lose since they were amateurs. But I think Fury just finds a way to win every time, and I think I'd have to stick with him.